Hello students, today we are going to discuss second chapter of class 11th, that is collection of data. Key points that are to be discussed in this chapter: primary and secondary data, modes of data collection, construction of questionnaire, collection of secondary data, and important sources of secondary data. Let's start the topic. First, what is primary data? Data collected by the investigator for his own purpose for the first time from beginning to end are called primary data. Primary data are original because they are collected by the investigator from the source of their origin. Primary data are always related to a specific objective of the investigator, therefore, do not need any adjustment. Primary data are costlier in terms of time, money, and efforts. The results drawn from primary data are more reliable. So, what is primary data? This is the original data which is collected by the investigator from the source of origin first time for his own purpose. That's why it is also called as first hand data. Next, this is about the secondary data. Secondary data are those which are already in existence and which have been collected for some other purposes than the answering of the questions in hand, that is the present purpose. Secondary data are already in existence, therefore are not original. Secondary data have already been collected for some other purpose, therefore needs to be adjusted to suit the present study. Secondary data are less expensive. The results drawn from secondary data may be less reliable because these are collected for some other purposes by other investigators. That's why these are not original and require a lot of adjustment. Now, second topic, this is mode of data collection. Here we are going to discuss about how primary data is collected. For this, we have 6 methods. First is direct personal investigation method, indirect oral investigation method, information from local source or correspondents, information through questionnaires and schedules, mailing method, and enumerators method. Now we will discuss these methods one by one. The very first one, direct personal investigation method. The direct personal investigation method is the method by which data are personally collected by the investigator from the informants from the informants. In other words, there is direct relationship between the investigator and informant. Now, what's about the suitability? When the field of investigation is limited, when a greater degree of originality is required, when information is to be kept secret, when accuracy of data is of great significance, and when direct contact with informants is required, means when higher degree of originality as well as accuracy is required, then we use direct personal investigation method. Now, what's about the merits and demerits? First, we will discuss about merits. Data collected from this method have a high degree of originality. Data are fairly accurate. High degree of reliability is there. The investigator may obtain other related information about informants. There is a fair degree of uniformity in the data. This method is fairly elastic because the investigator can always make necessary adjustments. बच्चे, elastic means flexible. Whenever the change is required, whenever the adjustments are required, the investigator can make changes or adjustments. Means this method is elastic, this method is not rigid at all. Now, what's about the demerits? The very first one, difficult to cover wider area because it is very essential to maintain a direct contact with the informants, so it is not suitable or it does not cover wider area. This method is highly prone to the personal biasness of the investigator. Personal biasness means the partial behavior. This method is very expensive in terms of time, money, and efforts. Less representative because the area of investigation is generally small. Second method, this is indirect oral investigation method. Indirect oral investigation is the method by which information is obtained not from the persons regarding whom the information is needed. It is collected orally from other persons who are expected to possess the necessary information. These other persons are known as witnesses. Now, what's about the suitability? When the field of investigation is relatively large, because there is no need to maintain a contact with the informants. That's why it can cover relatively large area. It is not possible to have direct contact with the informants. The informants are not capable of giving information because of their ignorance or illiteracy. Investigation is of complex nature and only experts can give information. This method is very, very important because it helps to get expert opinion. If the population or the universe or the informants are ignorant and illiterate and are not capable to give the necessary information, then this method can be used because the informations about the informants are supplied by the persons who are expected to possess the necessary information and who are known as witnesses. Now, merits of indirect oral investigation method. This method can cover the large field of investigation. This is relatively less expensive method because it is not necessary for the investigator to go to every informant to collect the information. This method ensures the expert opinion. This method is free from personal bias of the investigators because the information is supplied by the witness. This is relatively a simple approach of data collection. Now, what's about the demerits? This method provides relatively less accurate results because the information is obtained from persons other than the concerned informants. There is possibility of personal biasness of the witnesses giving information. This method may lead to doubtful conclusions due to carelessness of the witnesses. Dear students, the entire reliability of this method depends on the information supplied by the witnesses. So, if the witness is not sincere or careful, the conclusions that are drawn from this method may be doubtful. Now, what's about the principal difference between direct personal and indirect oral investigation method? In case of direct personal investigation, there is direct contact with the informants, while in case of indirect oral investigation, information is obtained by contacting other than the informants, that is witness. Direct personal investigation is suitable when field of investigation is small, while indirect oral investigation is suitable when the field of investigation is large. Direct investigation is relatively costlier because each and every informant is to be contacted, while in indirect investigation no such contact is required. That's why it is comparatively less expensive. Direct investigation provides more accurate results as compared to indirect oral investigation. Direct personal investigation works only when the informants are well versed in the language and cultural habits, while this is not required in case of indirect oral investigation method. Dear students, this is very important topic. You must understand the difference between these two methods. Third topic, this is information from local sources or correspondents. Under this method, the investigator appoints local persons at different places to collect regular and continuous information. Suitability: when the area of investigation is quite large, regular and continuous information is needed, a very high degree of accuracy is not required, the information is to be used by journals, newspapers, magazines, radio, TV, etc. Dear student, you can better understand this topic because uh, the coverage of Nisarg storm, Nisarg cyclone is continuously provided in TV channels through the local correspondents. Now, what's about the merits? This is quite economical in terms of time, money, and efforts. It can cover wide areas. It allows a fairly wide coverage of investigation. Continuity: the correspondents keep on trying almost regular information. Suitable for special purpose: this method is suitable for some special purpose investigation. For example, price quotations from the different grain markets for the construction of index number of agricultural prices, which you will study the construction of index number in the last chapter of this very book. Now, what's about the demerits? First, this is loss of originality. Originality of data is sacrificed due to lack of personal contact with the respondents, lack of uniformity as it is collected by a number of respondents, personal bias from the correspondents, less accurate. The data collected by this method are not very accurate. Delay in collection: generally there is a delay in the collection of information through this method. So this is about the demerits. There is lack of originality, lack of uniformity, and personal biases on behalf of the correspondents. Move to the next topic. This is questionnaire and schedule. First, we will discuss about questionnaire. Questionnaire refers to a list of questions which is prepared by the investigator for his present study. If it is filled by the enumerators themselves, by putting questions, then it is called a schedule. And if it is filled by the informant or the respondent himself, it becomes a questionnaire. Dear students, you must understand the difference between questionnaire and a schedule. In fact, it is a list of questions, and if it is filled by the enumerators, then it becomes a schedule, and when it is filled by the respondent or the informant, it becomes a questionnaire. On the basis of questionnaire and schedule, we are having two methods, that is, information through questionnaires and schedules. Under this method, the investigator prepares a questionnaire according to the inquiry or the purpose. There are two ways of collecting information on the basis of questionnaire. One, mailing method, and second, enumerators method. First is the mailing method. Under this method, questionnaires are mailed to the informants. A letter is attached with the questionnaire giving the purpose of the inquiry. The informant is assured that the information would be kept secret. The informants are expected to fill the questionnaire and returns to the investigator. Now, what's about the suitability? When the area of the study is very wide and the informants are educated, means that they are able to understand the questionnaire, its purpose, etc., and are capable to fill the questionnaire. Now, what's about the merits? This method is economical in terms of time, money, and efforts involved. This method is original and therefore fairly reliable. This method allows wide coverage of the area of study. Now, what's about demerits? First is the lack of interest. Generally, the informants do not take interest in questionnaires and fail to return the questionnaires. Lack of flexibility. This method lacks flexibility. That's why when questions are not properly replied, these cannot be changed to obtain the required information. This method has limited use as the questionnaires can be answered only by the educated informants. This method fails if the informants are biased because reliability depends on the informants. That's why it suffers doubtful conclusion if the informants are not unbiased, means if the informants are partial or biased. There is less accuracy because some questions may be difficult and consequently accurate answers may not be offered. Next, this is about the enumerators method. Under this method, a questionnaire is prepared according to the purpose of inquiry. The enumerator himself approaches the informant with the questionnaire. The enumerators are given training to fill these schedules and put the questions intelligently. Now, what's about the suitability? When field of investigation is quite large, when the investigation needs specialized and skilled investigators. The investigators are well versed in the local languages and cultural norms of the informants. Now, what's about the merits? This method is capable of wide coverage in terms of areas involved. Even illiterate person can also be covered. There is a fair degree of accuracy in the result because investigations are performed by specialized enumerators. There is personal contact between the investigator and the informants. Accordingly, accurate answers are obtained. This method is impartial because information is recorded directly from informants. This method provides complete information as these are filled by the enumerators themselves by asking the questions from informants. Now, what's about the demerits? This is very expensive method of investigation because it needs large number of trained investigators because direct contact is to be established between the investigator and the informant. When competent enumerators are not available, the accuracy of information gets suffer. This method is very time consuming. This method is a very expensive. That's why not suitable for private investigation. This method is quite biased on behalf of the enumerators. Now, what's about the qualities of a good questionnaire? The number of questions in a questionnaire should be quite limited. Language of the question should be simple and clear so that can easily be understood. Now, questions must be placed in a proper order. Undesirable questions or personal questions must be avoided. Questions should be such as can be answered impartially, that is, no controversial questions should be asked. Now, we will continue this topic. Questions involving calculations by the respondents must be avoided. Many people do not like calculations, so calculations should be done by the investigator himself. Some questions be asked from the important points on trial basis, that is, there must be retesting pilot survey by the experts. It is pre-testing pilot survey by the experts. A questionnaire must show clear instructions for filling in the form. Such questions may be asked which help cross verification. Requests should be made to the respondents to return the questionnaire completed in all respect. Now, what type of questions should be there in a good questionnaire? There are 4 possible types of questions. The very first, simple alternative questions which are answered in yes or no, right or wrong, or good or bad. For example, there is a question, do you have a motorbike? And you are to tick yes or no. Second type, multiple choice questions. These are MCQs. A number of possible answers are given for such questions. For example, how do you go to school? Options are on foot, bicycle, bus or scooter. You are to tick the correct answer. Third, specific information questions. For example, in which class do you read? Definitely, the answer varies. Answer will vary from person to person. And the fourth one, these are the open questions. In such questions, the informant is requested to give his opinion on specific issues. For example, what can you say about lockdown in India during the present scenario? So, these are the types of questions that can be included in a questionnaire. Now, there is one more question. What are the steps for a field investigation? While planning a field survey, the following steps should be followed. Dear students, you must understand this concept because for your project, you will have to conduct a field survey. So, very first, design questionnaire with utmost care by keeping in mind the qualities of a questionnaire. Second, to decide the mode of inquiry, that is, which method should be used. Third, arrange a proper training program for the investigators explaining the purpose and mode of inquiry. Fourth, pilot survey should be conducted when the field of investigation is very large. We will discuss about pilot survey. Now, what's about the pilot survey? It refers to a tryout survey or a pre-testing survey covering a very small sample of the universe of the study. This helps an investigator to assess the quality of questionnaire and the way respondents respond to the set of questions. Pilot survey helps in assessing the quality and suitability of questions, in assessing performance of the investigators, in designing a set of instructions for the enumerators, in assessing the cost and time involved in the final survey. This is very important topic. Now, what's about the errors in collection of data? These are the sources of errors in collection of data. Means while collecting the data, there may occur some errors. Now, what type of errors may occur? The very first one, errors related to the measurement of objects. It occurs due to different methods adopted by different enumerators. We have already discussed about the different methods by which primary data can be collected. Now, errors occurring due to wrong responses by the respondents, errors occurring due to the lack of response, errors occurring due to miscalculation, also called arithmetical errors. Now, errors occurring due to communication gap or due to lack of recording of the information. Next, this is about the collection of secondary data. So far, we have completed how primary data is collected. Now, we will discuss how secondary data is collected. There are two main sources of secondary data. First is the published sources like government publication, semi-government publications, report of committees and commissions, publications of trade associations, publications of research institutions, journals and papers, publications of research scholars, international publications like UNO, IMF, World Bank, etc. Dear students, secondary data is already in existence and was collected by some investigators for their own study. So, from where we can get the secondary data? We can get from the published sources as well as unpublished sources. Unpublished sources, these data are not published. These are collected by the government organization and others generally for their self-use or for their office record. Now, precautions in the use of secondary data. While using the secondary data, one should keep in mind the following points. First, ability of the collecting organization, objective and scope of collecting data, method of collection adopted by the original investigator, time and conditions of collection of data should also be kept in mind. For example, data collected during war times may not be suitable during peacetime. Definitions of the unit should also be kept in mind. Accuracy of the data should also be checked. Now, we will discuss about important sources of secondary data. There are two important sources of secondary data. First is Census of India and second is reports and publications of National Sample Survey Office. Now we will discuss these two in detail. Census of India is a decennial publication of the government. It is published by Registrar General and Census Commissioner. It is very comprehensive source of secondary data related to population size and the various aspects of demographic changes. It covers mainly the parameters like size, growth rate and distribution of population, then population projections, then density of population, sex composition of population and state of literacy. In fact, census method studies the population and related issues. Now, next topic. This is NSSO, National Sample Survey Office. Reports and publications of NSSO is another important source of secondary data. It is a government organization under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. The reports and publication of the NSSO offers statistical information of the following parameters: land and livestock holdings, housing conditions and migration, employment and unemployment status in India, consumer expenditure in India, source of household income in India. Dear students, census method covers each and every item of the universe, while NSSO is based on sample technique. We will discuss about these two methods, that is census technique as well as sample techniques, in our next chapter. So with this, our second chapter is over. Now what's about the homework? Revise the chapter thoroughly and send me your doubts either on app or in group or to me personally. Okay beta, have a nice day. Prepare this chapter for unit test.